by one of the commissioners from the LACC, and that is the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission. The Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission is one of the integrated institutions established by this government as part of the broader reform of our governance system. And their work is to check, bring to public attention, possibly prosecute excesses committed by people who hold in public office. All these things are intended to strengthen our governance system and our democratic credentials as a country. And so today, we have with us Commissioner Hamilton Dolo. She is responsible for education and prevention at the LACC. Commissioner Dolo will speak on the new asset declaration, verification, and regulations processes for officials of government. Madam Dolo, you are welcome to the podium.
Honorable Smith, staff of the Ministry of Information, members of the press, staff of the LACC present, our listeners in Radio Land, good morning. My name is Hamilton Dolo. I'm the Commissioner with Oversight for Education and Prevention from the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission. This morning, I have come to speak to you about the regulations for the administration, monitoring, receiving, and implementation of the Assets Declaration in accordance with the National Code of Conduct for all public employees and officials of the government of Liberia. But before I delve into my topic, please permit me to restate that it is always an honor for me to come and address the public on the works of the Education and Prevention Division at the Liberian Anti-Corruption Commission. I would also like to ask you, the press and the public, that as you continue to keep members of the Commission accountable, which you should rightly do, we want you to please take note of this, that as with any organization, LACC is in stage 2 of the organization development, which is the survival stage. I like to use the analogy of building a house. When one is building a house, a huge amount of the resources for that building is used on the foundation of that house. I stand to be corrected. Hardly ever have I heard somebody pass by a house that's only at the foundation level and says, wow, this is a beautiful foundation. To the common eye, like my eyes, all I see are compartments or divisions of something in the ground. But it does not occur to me, or it does not depict what that house will look like. However, the most important part of the house is the foundation. As a matter of fact, the foundation is the house. Because no matter what superficial cosmetics you do with the super walls of the house, if the foundation is not strong, you do not have a house. So I'm saying this to say that we at the LACC are committed to our fights against corruption without fear or favor. Oftentimes, we hear that we are not doing enough, but we just want to use the analogy, we are building the foundation, and one day you will see the structure of the foundation, and you will remember who the builders were. Thank you very much. The background of the regulations that we're about to implement has its roots in the Constitution. Chapter 11, Article 19 of our 1986 Constitution empowers the legislator to prescribe a code of conduct for government officials and employees to guide the conduct. Subsequently, Madam President, in her wisdom, even in the absence of a code of conduct, began to issue executive orders. The last one, which was Executive Order 55, mandating presidential appointees to declare the assets of the Liberian Anti-Corruption Commission. So back then, only government officials in the executive branch of government had to declare the assets. In 2014, March 31st, the National Code of Conduct for Public Officials and Employees was enacted as law. Fast forward 2015, a year after, the Ombudsman Office had not yet been operationalized. Section 5.2 of the Liberian Anti-Corruption Act of 2008 mandates the LSCC to lead the anti-corruption strategy of Liberia, including the implementation of the Code of Conduct. So in the Commission's wisdom, and that of the GC and other integrated institutions, we needed to proceed with our work even though the Ombudsman Office was not yet open. So we formed a technical committee group of which I headed, and former Councillor Ruth Japa of the GAC was the co-chair, and we had GC was the co-chair, and we had the GAC, PPCC, Ministry of Justice, 16 different stakeholder groups come together to form this National Technical Committee. All of that group, we broke up into 3 groups. One, the law group that reviewed the law to see where we needed amendments to the law, the Assets Declaration and Verification group, and the Education and Awareness group. So it is out of that group these regulations were made. Subsequently, the regulations were presented to Madam President, and she gave the Commission the go-ahead to publish these regulations. So for the past couple of weeks, you have seen the regulations running in various news media. It's also on the websites of the Executive Mansion, the LSCC, GAC, and other websites. So I'm here today to speak about these regulations, because this is a new thing now that both members of the legislature and the judiciary, in addition to the executive, have to declare the assets. So I will briefly read high points of the regulations, and then we'll go into the technical aspect of it, and I'm sure thereafter the question and answer will follow. The regulation reads, whereas Article 90 of the Constitution of Liberia empowers the national legislature to prescribe a code of conduct for all public officials and employees, stipulating the act which constitute conflict of interest or against public policies and penalties for violations. Part 10 of the National Code of Conduct for all public officials and employees of government of the Republic of Liberia requires that every public official and employee of government involved in the following: decision-making affecting contracting, tendering, procurement, and issuance of licenses of various types shall sign performance or financial bonds, and in addition declare his or her assets, income, liabilities prior to taking office, and thereafter at the end of every 3 years, on promotion or progression from one level to another, upon transfer to another public office, and upon retirement or resignation or dismissal. Now, therefore, these regulations are issued pursuant to Part 10 of the National Code of Conduct in Section 5.2 of the Liberian Anti-Corruption Act of 2008. So I'll just go over and tell you who was supposed to file and where they're supposed to file, and then we can go into the rest of the details. For the legislator, members of the House of Representatives, members of the Senate, Secretariat of the Senate, Chief Clerk of the House of Representatives, controllers, procurement officers, departmental directors, and project managers, judiciary, Chief Justice, and Associate Justices of the Supreme Court, judges of circuit courts and circuit-level specialized courts, statutory and associate magistrates, clerk of the Supreme Court, circuit courts and circuit-level specialized courts, court administrators, controllers, procurement officers, departmental directors, and project managers. The executive, the presidents, vice presidents, cabinet ministers, deputy and assistant ministers, controllers, procurement officers, custom officers, internal revenue agents, departmental directors, project managers, and people making decisions affecting contracting, tendering, or procurement and insurance of licenses of various types. Members of the board of directors, head, deputy heads of state-owned enterprises, chairpersons, commissioners, deputy heads, and department heads of independent commissions, ambassador at large, ambassadors, consular general, consular officers, head and deputy head of departments, and head of foreign missions, institutions, and organizations, heads, deputies, department heads, top-ranking officers, from the rank of captain where applicable, of law enforcement and investigation agencies, including but not limited to Liberia National Police, Bureau of Immigration, Drug Enforcement Agency, National Security Agency, etc. Chief of Staff, Deputy Chief of Staff, and commissioned officers of the Armed Forces of Liberia, and custom officers. Where are these people supposed to declare? For those in the judiciary, they will declare to the clerk of the Supreme Court. For those in the House of Representatives, they will declare to the chief clerk of the House of Representatives. And to those in the Senate, they will declare to the Secretary of the Senate. In the executive, we will declare to the GAC or the LSCC in furtherance of an MOU signed between the two commissions in 2016, excuse me. This repository will remit one of 2 copies of assets declaration forms to the LSCC for verification, strict investigative purposes. When are people supposed to declare? When you are newly hired or appointed officials, people who have been in the service of government, who have not filed before, those who are filing for the first time, the deadline is July, the last Friday of July 2017. That is the deadline for all of the filings for those where it is applicable. Other people have filed and so they may not be up for filing. But for new people and people who have not filed, people who are due to file, we expect them to file by the last Friday in July 2017. This is a law, and refusal to declare assets per these regulations shall be deemed a violation of Section 4.2 of the National Code of Conduct, respect for law of the state, and shall be punishable in the following manner. 1. Salary reimbursement of expenses per dime, bonuses, awards, or other fees will not be paid to any official or concerned public employee until a completed, signed, and notarized assets declarations form is filed with the relevant authority who will confirm same with the LSCC. Payment of salary, reimbursement of expenses per dime, bonuses, award, or other fees to any official or employee who occupies position herein listed as prescribed by 10.1 of the Code of Conduct who has not submitted his re-declaration form within 2 months of the deadline shall be required to be suspended until a complete signed and notarized re-declaration form is received and validated by the LSCC. For the judiciary, the clerk of the Supreme Court and the LSCC will inform the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of violation of this subsection by the concerned public employee. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court will enforce punitive measures for infringement under this subsection. For the executive, the LSCC will advise the Office of the President of Liberia on violations and enforcement measures and collaborates with relevant heads and officers of ministries, agencies, and commissions responsible for approving and executing payments to implement effective systems to ensure suspension of payment from the state's government budget to officials and relevant public employees who have not filed assets declaration form in compliance with these regulations. For the House of Senate, the Secretary of the Senate and the LSCC will inform the President pro tempore of the Senate of violations under this subsection. The President pro tempore of the Senate will enforce punitive measure for infringement under this subsection. For the House of Representatives, the Chief Clerk and the LSCC will inform the Speaker of the House of Representatives of violations under this subsection. The Speaker of the House will enforce punitive measures for infringement of this subsection. Administrator of the Assets Disclosure System. Our universal filing deadline, like I said, the last Friday of July of each filing year, where applicable, will be enforced. The LSCC shall publicly announce the annual Assets Declaration filing deadline dates no less than 2 months in advance of such deadline, as relevant authorities designated to receive completed assets declaration form will confirm receipt of form and notify the LSCC. And I don't want to continue just reading, but the technical people will tell you about the forms and other things. Well, why is it important for us to implement this instrument? First and foremost is that those of us who have been given the opportunity to serve the Liberian people have an obligation to them to make sure that we are accountable to them and we are transparent in our dealings. So filing an assets declaration form is good for the person filing, those in government filing, so that there is a record of the accumulation of wealth while you are in office. Also, Liberia is signatory to a lot of international conventions and parties, and as a matter of those engagements, we are under obligations to rectify some of good governance practices, one of which is the assets declaration and verification regime. So we are hoping that we will get the consensus of all those involved. We have spoken and visited with the pro tem and spoken to him about the regulations. We also visited the head of the House of Representatives, the Speaker, and they are all on board. We've also spoken to the Chief Justice. So we are please appealing to the media. Please help us to carry out the education because this is a new regulation. You have people who never had to file before who have have to file now. So we're asking you and asking the general public to please assist us in this endeavor. Thank you very much for your time. And at this time, I will ask Sabon Palinke, who is the Assets Verification Officer of the LSCC, to come and give you some of the technical details that I may have left out. Thanks.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope estate. My name is Sabon Palinke, the head of the Asset Declaration Verification Unit at the Liberian Anti-Corruption Commission. Today is a new day for Liberia. We are going to be as brief as possible, but this is a mechanism to help the country. When people acquire wealth or money, they either transform them into wealth or pleasure. And we see the pleasure part by the lifestyle, and then we see the wealth by the asset as a whole. If you see somebody making $200 and owning a $400,000 villa or something, there's a reason for concern. This is not a witch hunt. It's intended to secure our nation's financial system and to ensure that people in government remove the perception of corruption. This is a last minute time guideline or deadline for people who are about to exit government, going to elections. We encourage our brothers and sisters to take advantage of this opportunity to be transparent and accountable to those who govern. As it relates to the technical aspect of filing the asset declaration, we want to indicate that it remains confidential until such time that we are told that it can be made public. We want to give you the comfort and reliance that all information filed with the asset declaration and verification unit on the LSCC remains confidential. We're going to keep it on a lock and key. We want you to know that we are developing an asset declaration software to enhance the process, where we minimize the person-to-person engagement, where you can do your filing online from the comfort of your home or your office. We also like you to know that the forms are available on our website. There is a portal on our homepage. It's the asset declaration. You click on it and then you see the regulation. It's the asset declaration form. You download it, save it on your laptop or desktop, and you can fill it in right where you are sitting, notarize it, and then file it with us or the designated officials. It is important to do so because we have a few months to the end of this government and towards the election. The electors will be asking about transparency and accountability, and it's very important to police stand before your people and say, I was open to obeying the rules of law and I did obey the rules of law. We are also planning what we call a TOT with our partners, the LPAC USAID, to train those who will be handling the asset declaration document. We want to make sure that we synchronize the process so that what is done at the LSCC is done in the other branches of government with those handling the document, so we can have a seamless process in terms of accounting for what is done, both at the legislature and the judiciary and our own end. The process is integrity driven. We know that it is the culture of Liberians to tell people thank you when they assist you, but we have a zero tolerance for gifts, and we advise all and sundry not to attempt telling anybody thank you. I don't care how much assistance they give you, do not tell anybody thank you. We do not need any favor from anybody. We do not need gas slip, we do not need money, we do not need anything, because we are well paid and we're going to do our work. We are the conscience of our institution, and we're going to hold that and hold ourselves very accountable. I tell you, we hesitate to dismiss nobody who violates the rules. So the asset declaration is in plain language. When we came here, I did not come with a copy. I went to the personnel section of this ministry. I actually did it as a test so that they know that it's available online. I spoke with Mr. Johnson. I said, can you please go online on our homepage
Say, how can I get to your homepage? I said, just Google Abroad Anti-Corruption Commission, and then you will see our homepage, and then you click on our homepage, on the link, you see asset declaration, and then you see asset declaration form. You click on asset declaration form right on the asset declaration menu or portal, and then this link appears, and then you click on this, and it is going to be downloaded on your machine. Like I said earlier, you can keep this right on your desktop and type into it. You do not need to write into it, so that when you misspell anything, you can just backspace and continue doing it, and then you can complete it, print it, review it, delete, add, and then correct it, and then you can do your final print. If you even need advice, you can email it to us and say, is it okay for me to notarize? We look at it and tell you, put this, and put that, and then email it back to you. So it's going to be interactive where the need arises. So we want to encourage you that the LACC has been doing a lot of work in the back. Our executive chair and other members of the board have made this a priority, and we're going to work sun or rain, day or night, to make sure that before the deadline, we will be somewhere in the execution of this. Lastly, the funds, like I said, are secure. We treat it as though you're treating a currency in the bank vault. Dual control. No one person can go there and pull out your phone. And we also have people importing all of what has been filed since 2009. You're talking about almost 1,000 declarations into a software, which will generate report, which will generate suspicious report, which will give us information that we will share with the public as we generate those reports. Not the details of people's declaration, but at least you will know the net worth of an individual. You will know who has filed, you will know who hasn't filed, you will know how many times the individual filed, and all of those basic information, they will become public information before we get to the election. So these are basic things that we are working on. If there's anything that I left, or you have the option to ask me a question or two. Thank you.